Welcome to AgeWise, where we mix deep thoughts with deep laughs. Today, we're tackling loneliness in senior years, but don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. We're blending a bit of philosophy. Yeah, Aristotle and his social animals nonsense, with some sharp humor. Because if we're going to get real about loneliness, we might as well have some fun doing it. Let's get into it right away. Type 1. The I'm surrounded, but still alone. Loneliness. Let's kick this off with a real mind bender. You ever been in a room full of people, everyone's chatting, laughing, passing around photos of their grandkids, and yet you feel like you're on a deserted island? Yeah, that's what they call emotional loneliness. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Hell is other people." And you know what? Sometimes he had a point. You can be surrounded by family, neighbors dropping off casseroles, or that chatty guy at the grocery store who won't stop talking about weather patterns. But none of it hits right because deep down, you're craving connection that goes beyond small talk. It's like everyone's talking about the latest sale at the supermarket, and you're sitting there wondering about the meaning of life. See, it's not about the number of people around you. It's about feeling understood. And let's be honest, after a certain age, you've been through some stuff. You want conversations that don't make you want to fake a bathroom break. This kind of loneliness sneaks up on you because it hides behind noise and company. It's like being stuck at a party where everyone's having fun, but you can't find the exit. The worst part? Nobody notices. Because from the outside, you seem fine. So what do? Well, you got to find your tribe. People who don't just ask how you're doing, but actually wait for the answer. Folks who get the same jokes, who don't need you to explain why the music was better back in the day. Real connections. Because no one wants to spend their golden years nodding along to conversations that don't mean a thing. And don't worry, we're just getting started. The next type of loneliness, it'll hit even harder. Stick around. Type 2. The I used to matter loneliness. Now this one's a real gut punch. You wake up one day, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and it hits you. You used to matter. You had a job, responsibilities, people needed you. Deadlines and meetings kept you in the game. And now, you're sitting there arguing with the toaster because it won't pop fast enough. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." Profound, right? But what happens when that why starts feeling blurry? When no one's asking for your opinion or depending on you anymore? It's like being the star of a show that's been quietly canceled. This loneliness creeps in when you start feeling invisible. The kids have their own lives, and society has the nerve to assume your biggest decision is what brand of cereal to buy. The world moves on, but you're left wondering if you still have a role to play. But here's the kicker. Retirement or getting older doesn't mean your story's over. It means you get to pick the next chapter. Want to matter again? Find something that makes you feel needed, volunteer, mentor, or share those life lessons you've paid good money for in the form of hard knocks. Someone out there needs your experience, even if they don't know it yet. Because let's face it, you're not done. Not by a long shot. And if Nietzsche taught us anything, it's that finding that why, again, could be the key to kicking this type of loneliness to the curb. Stick around. The next one's gonna hit a nerve, especially if you've ever stared at your phone, waiting for it to ring. Type 3. The surrounded but alone loneliness. This one hits hard because it fools you into thinking you're fine. You're at a family dinner, surrounded by people who share your DNA, laughter bouncing off the walls, and still, there you are, sitting quietly with that gnawing feeling, like you're watching life happen from behind a glass wall. Everyone's talking about TikTok trends, the some TV show with characters you can't keep track of, or apps with names that sound like sneezes. You nod along, smile at the right moments, but inside, it's like you're an extra in someone else's movie. Plato once said, "The greatest penalty of evil doing is to grow into the likeness of bad men." But let's tweak that a bit. The greatest penalty of disconnection is to feel like a stranger among your own people. You're there physically, but mentally, emotionally, miles away. It's not about missing company, it's about missing connection. You crave conversations where you don't have to fake interest or laugh at jokes you don't get. You miss the kind of talks that feed your soul, discussions about life's big questions, not the latest influencer drama. This kind of loneliness cuts deeper because it comes with a side of guilt. How can I feel lonely when I'm not even alone? But here's the thing, being in a room full of people who don't get you is sometimes lonelier than being by yourself. So how do you shake this off? You go find your people. The ones who talk about things that matter. The ones who get excited about a good book, a walk in the park, or a conversation about something real. Maybe it's time for a new hobby or joining a group that shares your interests. Because let's face it, being surrounded doesn't mean being connected. And life's too short to keep playing the role of a guest star in someone else's story. The next type of loneliness. It's the kind that creeps up in the quietest moments, and you'll want to hear this. Type 4. The I'm not needed anymore. Loneliness. This one sneaks up when you least expect it. You wake up one morning, pour your coffee, and it hits you. Nobody's asking for your help. No phone calls for advice, no knocks on the door needing a favor. It's like you've gone from being the star player to sitting on the bench, waiting for a coach who forgot you're still on the team. Remember Aristotle? He believed that purpose is what gives life meaning. When you feel like you're no longer part of the action, that sense of purpose starts slipping through your fingers. You start wondering, did I peak 20 years ago? When the kids were small, the house was full of noise, and work gave you a reason to get up. Now, the silence feels less like peace and more like a reminder that the world's moved on without you. But here's the truth, purpose doesn't retire. It doesn't fade just because your daily calendar isn't packed. It evolves. The trick is figuring out what purpose looks like now. It could be mentoring someone who's just starting out, volunteering where your experience makes a difference, or even sharing stories that people need to hear. You don't stop being valuable just because no one's knocking on your door. Sometimes you need to go out and knock on a few yourself. And hey, if you're feeling this, you're not alone. That's exactly why we're here talking about it, keeping it real. If you're digging this mix of brutal honesty, humor, and a little bit of philosophy, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Let's make sure nobody feels like they're sitting on the sidelines without a game plan. Type 5. The who am I without them? Loneliness. This one hits hard, doesn't it? It creeps in after losing someone who made up a big part of your identity. Maybe it's a spouse, a best friend, or even the coworkers you used to gripe with every day. Suddenly, you're sitting there, sipping your coffee, double wondering, who the hell am I now? It feels like you've been part of a two-person comedy act for decades, and now you're left standing on stage without punchlines. The philosopher Kierkegaard would call this an existential crisis, but let's break it down in plain terms. You've been riding shotgun in your own life because you were so used to sharing the journey with someone else. Now you've got to grab the wheel, and that's terrifying. You start questioning everything. The hobbies you shared, the routines you built, even the jokes that no longer land without them there to laugh. It's not just loneliness. It's a full-on identity crisis with a side of existential dread, but here's the twist. This is also a chance. A brutally uncomfortable one, sure, but a chance nonetheless. You get to figure out who you are now without the expectations or roles you used to fill. Try new things, even if you feel ridiculous doing them. Join a class, pick up a weird hobby, or just take a walk somewhere new. And if you're thinking, what's the point? That's the loneliness talking. The point is to discover that you're still here and there's more of you to meet. Life didn't end when they left. It just changed tracks. The next stop might surprise you. So after digging through all these flavors of loneliness, what's the takeaway? Life throws a lot at you. Sometimes it's a quiet house that feels a little too quiet. Other times it's being surrounded by people but still feeling like nobody's really there. And hey, that's just part of the deal. But here's the thing, you're not stuck. Philosophers have been wrestling with this stuff for centuries, and you know what? None of them had Netflix, FaceTime, or a neighbor who won't stop talking about their garden. The point is, you've got options. Loneliness doesn't have to be some heavy existential burden. It can be the push that gets you trying something new, reconnecting, or even laughing at the absurdity of it all. So if you made it this far, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that button because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Let me know in the comments what kind of loneliness hits you the hardest. Let's talk about it. Until next time, stay sharp, stay connected, and remember, AgeWise has your back.